What's good, everybody? Andrea Renee here for What's Good Games, taking your questions about Mass Effect Legendary Edition. For everybody who is joining me live on Twitch, thank you for hanging in there. It's been a rough morning of technical difficulties on the Twitch side. I know, shocking that What's Good Games was not responsible for the technical difficulties today. In fact, it was not my fault. So thank you, everybody who has been patient in the chat with me while I've been going live and going offline and coming back live. But if you're watching this later on YouTube, hopefully you'll get the nice edited version. So let's talk about Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So I've talked a little bit about it, so let's go over some of the high-level details. The release date, May 14th, 2021. Pre-orders are already available, and this will include Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, and Mass Effect 3 Remaster. I explain a little bit about the difference between a remake and a remaster. A remaster is essentially taking the original assets, upraising them, making them look pretty, doing some cranking on the engine under the hood. So this was originally made on Unreal Engine 3, and they have upgraded it and made it nice and shiny. What they did not do is change any of the narrative in the game. So some people had been asking me on Twitter, am I going to be able to change some of the romance options in Mass Effect 1? No, you will not be able to. Is Mass Effect 3's extended ending canon? Yes, it is. They did not change that. So if you were looking for some narrative changes, you're not going to get them here. This is, in fact, a true remaster. So what does that mean? It means that bioware was able to devote all of the time that they would have spent working with the narrative and quest design teams, and instead put it all into art, engineering, and animation, which is awesome because it means the game's going to look and play great. I haven't watched the trailer yet. It's exciting, right? So I thought we could watch it together. I did see, of course, a very long presentation from EA and BioWare behind the scenes, so I have a lot of details. I don't know if you guys have already been reading some other stuff around the web, but I was not anticipating over 400 responses to my tweet yesterday. There was a lot of questions. There's a lot of repeats, so we're not going to go through them all, and there's also some things that I just don't have the answers to, so I won't be able to answer, but I'll do the best that I can. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to watch the trailer together, and if you've already seen it, well, I guess you're just gonna see it again. Yes, the Citadel, let's go! They! Liara is they! I won't hear it any other way. You can have other ways. She's my bae. Oh, you guys, I can't believe it's so sad. Make out so hard.
You were born to do this.
Oh, yes. So good. So good. Here's what I want to say as a disclaimer off the top. I do not work for BioWare. I do not work for EA. I am just a pure fangirl of Mass Effect. So what does that mean? That means that you'll probably have some questions that I don't have answers to. It means you probably have questions that I think I have the right answers to that I might screw up because they won't let me actually show you the presentation I saw, which, you know, makes sense. And I took some extensive notes, but just make sure nobody gets mad, okay? Let's everybody just be chill. So I think what I'm going to do is show you guys a couple of screenshots of some side-by-sides of the original Mass Effect games and the new Mass Effect Legendary Edition games. So let me pull those up for you. Let's start with Thane, shall we? Thane is so great. So this is the original, and this is the remaster. So let me show you these a little bit more side by side so you can kind of see some of the differences here. So obviously you can see a little bit of textures in the background, but most of it is in the armor here. You see the detailing work that's done on the armor, much more detailed. Look at the textures on his face are greatly improved. The lighting, see the reflection, see the armor here? The reflection in his armor. So those little things are going to really pop throughout all 3 games. And so while the game is going to look and feel exactly as you remember, it's also going to be a lot better than you remember. Okay, so continuing on, let's take another look at some differences. We've got the, how about this? An oldie but a goodie. The Mako, everybody. Everybody loves the freaking Mako. / love hates the Mako. So this is the original, the Mako, the original. And now in the Legendary Edition, this is the Mako in the Legendary Edition. So this is actually quite a dramatic change. And I think the reason why we're seeing such a dramatic change in Mass Effect 1 is because obviously it's the oldest of the games. And so they had to do the most amount of work. So let's do a little side by side here. Let me make this one a little bit smaller so you can really see some of the differences here. So you've got, obviously you can see a difference in a little bit of the HUD. You can see a difference in the textures on the Mako itself. In the background, look at the skybox differences here. So obviously like the weather effects are a little bit different in this shot. You got the sun peeking through the clouds here, which is really cool. You obviously can see some of the differences in the textures here, side by side, really interesting. What I just love is that there's just so many of these little details you can see back here that they've just really added so much depth in the color and in the lighting effects that are really going to make this game pop in the Legendary Edition. Again, 4K HDR. It will be 60 frames per second on Xbox One X, PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox Series X, and PlayStation 5, as well as PC, of course. Again, if you're playing it on the base level consoles from last gen, you will not get that 60 frames per second. They just don't have the juice. But then again, I played this game on Xbox 360 and it was great. So you don't really need it, but it's going to be amazing. There's basically going to be a lot of graphics improvements here. So this is a shot of the Reapers. You can see some nice texture and detail in Shepard's armor there. This is another shot of the Reapers. I think what's kind of exciting about this is you can see all of the different textures in the background, lighting effects. So I think what's really cool about a lot of this is that it's, you know, they're making some really, really impressive changes. And of course, everyone's favorite villain, the Elusive Man. Very cool. Do you guys remember the first time you met the Elusive Man? It's gonna be amazing. If you want to see some more stuff in action, I have the trailer here that I can play again for you guys in the background while we do some chatting. Because I'm so excited too, Fan Dan. Hello and welcome to the stream. Yes, so Dave Parsec mentions it's going to be sweet to play on PC ultra-wide. BioWare confirmed that they are supporting ultra-wide monitors, 21:9 ratio. You will be able to play this in 4K Ultra HD on your fancy gaming monitor. So lots of stuff to be excited about there. Let's get to some of these other changes that we're going to be seeing in the Legendary Edition. So I had already mentioned all of the DLC. 40 pieces of DLC are going to be included in the Legendary Edition. Now, you won't be able to simultaneously play from Mass Effect 1 through Mass Effect 3, but they'll all be in the same launcher. So when you boot up your console or your PC launcher and you click on Mass Effect Legendary Edition. All 3 games will be right there, but you will have to click between individual games. Not that big of a deal in my opinion. As I had mentioned previously, you will be able to bring your saves from Mass Effect 1 and the Legendary Edition all the way through Mass Effect 3. It's one of the key things that I think is really special about the Mass Effect franchise that we don't see a lot of narratively these days, about being able to bring your save and your choices that you made as Shepard from one game to the next, and it has a meaningful impact, though we could debate about the merits of those impacts of Mass Effect 3, but we won't do that right now. What I don't have an answer for you is, will I be able to bring my old saves, my 360 saves or my PS3 saves? I had asked the team at BioWare this, and they said, we don't have an answer for you. We're looking into ways to make that happen. So that to me means it's probably not going to happen. So don't hold your breath. And what is also interesting is that if you decide, hey, I don't really want to play all the Mass Effect games, I just want to play one of the Mass Effect games, you can partake in the Genesis comics at the beginning of each game to help you pick some of the key narrative decisions that will impact Shepard's journey along the way. I'm going to have a fresh start at Mass Effect 1 and play all the way through. I don't know about y'all, but that's the way I recommend doing it, because there's some really great things that you don't want to miss in all of those games. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay mechanics that they have changed. As I have mentioned, they're not changing anything narratively, so that means that they had a lot of time and resources to change stuff under the hood, make things pretty, make the gameplay a little bit more polished. So some of the gameplay changes that they went over in the presentation was that they've made changes to aim assist with smoother aim. They've done weapon balancing across the board and tuning, bringing systems from Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 into Mass Effect 1, which I know was a big question. So you're going to see those gameplay and weapon systems in the later games in Mass Effect 1, which is great. They've removed class-based weapons restrictions, which I love. And they've also removed class-based aim penalties, which I also love, because when you pick your class in Mass Effect, you gotta be really into it, because you're gonna be with it for a long time. And raise your hand if you've started Mass Effect over multiple times because you got about 10 hours in with a class and decided this class isn't for me. It's happened to me. By the way, I decided after all of my runs of Mass Effect, which is over a dozen now, that Biotic is going to be my class of choice. I do like a lot of the other classes, but I mean, I'm a Biotic kind of a girl. Continuing on, they have reduced the difficulty and the frequency of some of the mini games across all 3 games, which I like. They've improved squad and AI controls. Now, this was a big thing because there was a lot of inconsistency about squad controls throughout the 3 games. So unifying that, polishing it up, and making the AI better, I think, is an awesome thing. I'm very excited about that. There's now a dedicated melee button. It's the little things, you guys. They've modernized the HUD across all 3 games, so the kind of clunkier HUD and menu system that you know from Mass Effect 1, gone. It's modernized and shiny and looks brand new. And they also have more consistent save points. So this is incredibly important because you are going to be making a lot of very important choices in Mass Effect that will dictate whether your team lives or dies. And if you're like me, that stresses you out. And so you want to make saves often, so they've made more consistent save points, which is very exciting. I am very, very happy about that. The team that I spoke with, by the way, that were on this presentation was Crystal McCord, who is a producer at BioWare, Mac Walters, of course, longtime Mass Effect guy who's the project director, and Kevin Meek, who is the environment and character director. When they were speaking about the team working on the Legendary Edition, they said that Kevin specifically called it a dream scenario of being able to work on the remaster for artists knowing that content and narrative is locked. The new consoles are super powerful and they have months to polish. So I know that everybody was kind of hoping that this was maybe going to come out last fall on N7 Day, but I'm glad that they gave themselves enough time to do polish, because what's the point of doing a remaster if it's not polished to perfection, right? Like, it doesn't really feel like a remaster if there's a bunch of bugs. So I love that they talked about this, and they talked about the team's enthusiasm for going back. So some of the questions that I want to address that I got on Twitter. One of the big questions was, is there going to be animation changes in Mass Effect 1? And while there are going to be some tweaks, there aren't going to be major animation changes because Mac Walters described that when they decided to go in and get under the hood of some of the earlier Mass Effect games, like Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 1, they discovered that there's actually a lot of proprietary animations that were written specifically for Mass Effect 1 that are actually really difficult to change. And so while they were able to clean up a couple of things, a lot of the animations that you see are going to be the same. And that means that, of course, it's staying true to the original vision, but that it's not going to be a complete overhaul like you would potentially see in a remake. Again, remaster versus remake, something to say. Hector, I'm glad that you asked about the hairstyles. Is there flowy hair? Yes. So that was a big thing that they punched on, as I mentioned earlier. They've overhauled the Creator character for Shepard, so all of the originals that were in Mass Effect 3, plus expanded options for hair and skin, are going to be available from Mass Effect 1 on. So you can create a single Shepard for Mass Effect 1 with expanded customization options, better hair, and you can take that Shepard with you from Mass Effect 1 into Mass Effect 3 in the Legendary Edition, which I think is an amazing feature that they decided to add. It's the little things. You're going to be seeing Shepard a lot. This isn't like a first-person game where you dump a bunch of time into creating your character and then you rarely see them. You see Shepard all the time. Not only is this game third person, but your Shepard appears in countless cutscenes and in romance scenes, and you want your Shepard to feel good. Again, raise your hand if you started Mass Effect over because you got a couple hours in and decided you didn't like the makeup that you chose for your femshep. That happened to me more than once. So I think it's great that they're expanding the customization options and that there's going to be a lot better things that you'll be able to do with your Shepard this time around, starting from the beginning. So, listen, Nerd Appropriate, I'm glad that you mentioned the googly eyes. So that was actually one of the things that Mac Walters touched on specifically. It said that they did their best to go in to specific cutscenes because they knew that there were some cutscenes where the characters kind of looked a little cross-eyed and looked a little weird. There's whole YouTube machinima series about Mass Effect and the weird, wacky cutscenes, GIFs and such. And so they cleaned a lot of those up, fixed a lot of those problems to make it more immersive and less game-breaking feeling. Not truly game-breaking, but when you see that. So I thought that that was really great as well. They've made major improvements to the Mako, so it's going to feel and drive a lot better. Of course, they're not taking the Mako out. There were some people in my Twitter feed asking me, you know, is the Mako back? I was like, of course the Mako is back. So I think that that's great. So let me go through some of these questions here. So Jason Finelli, at Big Man Finelli, friend of the show, says, Mass Effect 1 has been changed to control like the sequels, or is the original framework intact? So yes, Mass Effect 1 has been changed to control like the sequels. The original framework is not intact when it comes to gameplay, but it doesn't mean it's been completely overhauled. They've just, you know, cleaned up the HUD a little bit, but it's still gonna feel better. But they've made some dramatic changes to combat, which I think are for the better. And he also added, more generally, has Mass Effect 1 received more updates than the others? So this was a big question in my Twitter feed. A lot of people asked this question. And yes, Mass Effect 1 did receive a lot more time, according to the developers that I listened to, than the other two. And that's because it's the oldest and it had the oldest code and it needed the most amount of work, right? But that doesn't mean that they didn't polish up Mass Effect 3 with the same amount of love. It just means they had to spend more time with Mass Effect 1. So speaking of Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 1 took a lot of time. And I want to use that as a comparative unit as to why Mass Effect 3 does not have multiplayer. So that was a big question in our press briefing. Does Mass Effect 3 have multiplayer? Is the multiplayer coming back? No, the multiplayer is not coming back. BioWare wanted to focus on the single player experience. And what Mac Walters said in the presentation was that in order for them to even contemplate bringing multiplayer in, it would have taken the amount of time once they assessed what needed to be done to get it up to speed, to bring multiplayer in would have taken the amount of time it took to fix Mass Effect 1. And they were like, it just doesn't make sense for us to spend that much time and resources on multiplayer when we should be spending that on the main 3 games and the single player experience. And I wholeheartedly agree. I spent countless hours, hundreds and hundreds of hours in Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. I loved it. I really did. But I'm happy that they instead chose to use that time to focus on the single player experience and not bringing multiplayer in. There's just too many other multiplayer options right now. I agree, John T. Drake. I also really liked the multiplayer, but hated how it was used in story as a force function, but really enjoyed playing it. Samesies. So I also agree with you there. It was one of my main criticisms of Mass Effect 3 and the galaxy readiness system, that percentage, the persistent little annoying percentage in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen saying what your galactic readiness is at. So that is going to be taken out of the game. Oh, baby, it is exciting, Andy Cortez. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you, my friend. We should have done this together, Andy. I just didn't think you'd be awake. I know you're a night owl. So I saw the embargo time was 8 a.m. and I was like, there's no way Andy's getting up for this. But we'll definitely have to do some streams together at some point in Mass Effect. So, I was just talking about the multiplayer and what's going to happen with the multiplayer, and basically there is no multiplayer. So, yes, Game Informer does have a deep dive article. They got an exclusive, as they always do. It's fine. It's fine. It's Game Informer. It's just kind of what they do. Kebabs asks us that have the Pinnacle Station DLC. This was absent from the PS3 ports because bioware literally lost the code. Let's see. Pinnacle. I don't know if that was in my list, but let's double check. I don't see the Pinnacle DLC inside this list that I have here, unless it has a different name. Interesting. BioWare literally lost the code. I never heard that story. Deep cuts. That's everything. So I guess it's removed. Let's see here. How much better do the graphics look? Asks Adam407. Are we talking about smoothed out rough edges or full on PS5, Xbox Series X gorgeous, or somewhere in between? I would say it's somewhere in between. You have to remember, this is a remaster. This isn't a remake. I'm going to keep hammering that home. This is a remaster. This is not a remake. So that means that the graphics are the original graphics that they have polished up and looked pretty and put a 4K HDR coat of paint on and added lightings and textures, tens of thousands of textures that they have added. And so that means that it's going to look and feel like the original Mass Effect trilogy, but it's going to look much better. But it's not going to be a brand new engine. It's not brand new animations. They did not remake this game from the ground up because they're making new Mass Effect. We saw the new Mass Effect trailer at the Game Awards, and it was very exciting. And Liara was at the end of it. And I'm very excited about that because she is my favorite. So that's why this is not a remake. So I want everybody to set their expectations. And this is going to look like the Mass Effect you know, but look prettier. But it's not going to like blow your skirt up like, oh my God, it looks completely different. And I actually am very grateful for that because I have a lot of nostalgia. And so I don't know if I'm actually going to want that. So continuing down this line of questions here, let's see what else we have. Is it true that the collector's edition includes a full-size helmet? So this is what it looks like. The helmet, the N7 helmet, very cool. Steel book, fancy box, canvas art print of the Normandy. It says morality spinner pin. Listen, I like that. That's cute, but I'm Paragon all the way. I never had a Renegade playthrough. I never plan on having a Renegade playthrough. It's just not happening. The helmet is really cool. I definitely have to get this. Well, there goes some money. Oh, well, worth it. Hashtag worth it. Oh, Curtis asked, was there any hint that we should hang on to our save files for this collection or for anything else unnamed that may follow? So as I mentioned earlier, BioWare says, we'll get back to you on your original save files. I wouldn't delete them. Put them on a USB drive or something. But as of right now, there is no confirmation you'll be able to bring your original save files in to the Legendary Edition. However, you will be able to bring your save files from Mass Effect 1 in the Legendary Edition through Mass Effect 3 in the Legendary Edition. Just a confirmation. Kuzulao asks, will they add additional stuff in the game in any capacity other than improved textures? I really love these games, but I've played them so much at this point I know practically everything in the game. It would be awesome to experience a new side mission here or there. No, they will not be adding in additional narrative content. The narrative content has been locked. However, if you did not play through all of the DLC across all 3 games, now is a great time to do so because 40 pieces of DLC will be included, including armor packs, weapon packs, and digital goodies from Collector's Edition. So if you only ever bought the base level of the game and didn't play through some of the specialty character DLC, again, I will repeat, Lair of the Shadow Broker, Liara's DLC from Mass Effect 2 is the best DLC of all time. That's my thought, and I'm sticking with it. But don't look for new options to romance different people. That's not going to happen. Don't look for additional side quests. That's not going to happen. But perhaps you'll find something that you didn't have originally because maybe you thought you had all the DLC and you didn't. Or maybe you thought you played through all the DLC and you didn't. So that's kind of cool. So, at Jericho TVB says, if I already own all 3 Mass Effect games and all the DLC packs on Xbox, I can play them on my Series S or X today via backwards compatibility. What's the hook that will compel me to pay full price for the Legendary Edition when it comes out? This is a question I got a lot, not in this exact verbiage, but a lot of people were like, why am I paying for this again? And to that, I would say, it's an opportunity for you to re-experience one of the best RPG franchises of all time, looking its absolute best. And I think that that's important because I think a lot of times we forget that our expectations change over time as technology improves. I was recently watching old episodes of The West Wing with my dear husband, and the original season came up in 4:3. And it's hard to imagine that we used to play video games in 4:3 all the time. And that wasn't even that long ago. It was like 10 years ago. And that this whole idea of 4K and HDR and 16:9 is still a relatively recent thing in the world of video game graphics. And so I think the idea that you're going to be able to experience such momentous moments, because there are so many cinematic iconic moments in the Mass Effect franchise in, this remastered glory with lighting and textures, that I think that will be worth the price. And honestly, if you're perfectly happy with the trilogy as is via backwards compatibility with just the kind of up-resing you get naturally from the Xbox, the enhanced for Xbox features, then that's fine. Then maybe this isn't for you. But I personally, as a longtime fan of the series, am excited to see particularly Mass Effect 1 get a fresh coat of paint. If you guys played Halo the Master Chief Edition and you have that feature where you can toggle between original Halo and the remastered Halo, I mean, it's quite a difference, right? And it really kind of makes the game feel good. But again, the game is still going to be a lot of the same game, but they've made some, tweaks and stuff under the hood. All right, so apologies if I missed this. If I get this on PS4, will I eventually be able to upgrade to the PS5 version? Yes, you will. So hopefully, that'll be good for you, and you'll be able to bring that stuff with. Actually, yes. If you play on the Legendary Edition on PS4, you will be able to bring those save files to the PS5. Yes, that is correct. But it has to be the Legendary Edition. You can't bring your regular PS4 files from the original games into the Legendary Edition. That has not been confirmed. Christopher asks, have they made any big changes, for example, changing any of the skill trees to be more uniform? Mako driving changes? Does equipment remain original in the game, or have changes been made? Changes have been made across the board. I brought up some of those changes from my notes. So again, reduce difficulty and frequency of minigames, remove class-based weapon restrictions and class-based aim penalties, weapon balancing and tuning, aim assist and smoother aim, improved squad and AI controls, dedicated melee button, modernized HUD, more consistent save points, just to name a few. Camera interpolations and smoothing. There's more consistent autosave points. They have improved the base encounters. Oh, thank goodness. There's so many of those. There's more unified controls between the games, which I think is really the important thing that a lot of people are asking about, because the control schemes change quite differently each game across, particularly from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 3. I do like how they brought some of the original things from Mass Effect 1 into Mass Effect 3, but now all of those are kind of coming back full circle. Trolley Dodger says, out of curiosity, I just got here, but how's the character creator looking? So they have unified the character creator, taking all of the options from Mass Effect 3, expanding it, adding additional options, and bringing it to Mass Effect 1, so you have a unified Shepard throughout all 3 games, which is great. I wonder if they'll make the Mako missions way better, because in the original there was a lot of similar Mako mission designs. So they have not changed the level design or the quest design. So that part's not changing, but the controls have changed. So you'll be able to drive the Mako around a little bit easier, but the actual objectives and the quests have not changed. Armor customization changes. So, not when it comes to like cosmetics. They have added in DLC packs, things that were like pre-order bonuses, stuff like that, and so there's going to be a lot more choices, but they haven't really changed a lot with the armor customization, with the exception that they have removed class-based restrictions for some certain types of gear, which I think is great. Let's end the stream with me talking about my impressions. So I got to see a lot of side-by-side visual comparisons in characters, in some cutscenes, and overall I was really impressed by the upgrades that I saw. As a longtime Mass Effect fan, I was going to be excited about this no matter what. Full disclosure. Obviously, it's no secret that I'm a Mass Effect fangirl. And I think that when you as a consumer are trying to decide, is this worth my money to spend, you have to just ask yourself how much enjoyment you think you're going to get out of this, and if it's worth repaying for it, if you'd rather just play it on backwards compatibility. And I would say if you love Mass Effect, and if it was as impactful for you as it was for me, then it's no question that the amount of work that the BioWare team has put into the game, from what I've seen so far, is 100% worth the purchase price. But again, that is going to have to be a question you have to answer for yourself, and if that's something that you really want to spend your money on. I think it looks great. I couldn't be more thrilled about the amount of time that the team has put into making this game look great, and I am excited to go back and play this game, all 3 games, all over again. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for my Mass Effect Legendary Edition Your Questions Answered video. Hopefully I'll be able to give you guys an update if EA lets me see more of the game later on, but for now, mark your calendars for May 14th.